And for me, it's like the more I learn about genetics, it seems like the less I I fully understand because there's just so many variables, but it does it does, like you say, it lends to some legitimacy, and it also helps you stay away from some of the things that could hurt your program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also key to really know down the lines of your pedigrees, like specifically the dogs, and if you can see if you've seen those dogs or been able to actually understand each dog of that pedigree, personally see the dog, the more of that you do, the more you understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Something else as far as this health testing, me and Joe were talking about this the other day, and the health testing thing is wonderful, but everything in balance, because a lot of times what you'll see is someone that's really heavy into health testing, and they'll present their dog and say, look at my wonderful dog, and it's passed all its tests, so it's wonderful. And then you'll have someone else that has a dog that's, let's say, way better looking, hasn't done any health tests. It may very well be healthy as an ox, but they haven't done any health tests. And so then you have the health tested dog people, barking at the one that hasn't done the health tests yet. And I say to myself, okay, fair enough. But let's not forget that dog right there that's passed all of its tests is still an ugly dog. and there is still no reason to move forward with that one either. I don't care if it's healthy, it's ugly, so just stop. Right. It balances everything, right? Like, just because it's healthy doesn't mean you're supposed to keep going. You might want to stop there anyway.
You have a good family member. Congratulations.
Right.
Right.
But no one really talks about that. You know what I mean? Like, it passed everything. No one says nothing. You know what I mean? But it didn't pass my test. It didn't pass the eye test. You know what I mean? So it's just important to have it all. You gotta be balanced in everything. I mean, that's what breeding's about, right? It's about priorities. It's about balancing this and that, depending on what you're trying to breed. It's about balancing a look with a temperament, with a structure, with a purpose, whatever you're breeding for. It's just, what are you willing to give up and what are you willing to gain? And that's why some people are a lot better at it than others, because the way they gamble, or however you want to word that, or the choices they make, I shouldn't call it gambling, the choices they make over a period of time have better results.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's cool, Can you imagine, I'm getting off subject here a little bit, we're just talking about dogs,
Yeah.
Can you imagine, there's a big group of people out there that doesn't think we should be breeding dogs at all, because there's too many sitting in the shelters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I agree, there are too many sitting in the shelters, but there's definitely not enough good dogs in the world. So if you have a good one, by all means, please breed it. And can you imagine if, we just stopped breeding dogs for 5 years? What the repercussions of that would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
breed on the planet would be at risk of being of going extinct just after 5. 10 years would do it. 10 years would pretty much ruin everything. Thousands of years of you watch Westminster and you see these breeds that are out there, been around for a long time, gone, all gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at it this way. It's all fine and good. It's great to adopt a dog from a shelter. It's wonderful, right? But to say something to actual dog breeders are actually doing and caring, that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the argument could go that you're supporting poor breeding by buying shelter dogs, because whoever bred those dogs weren't doing it with any passion or any vision or any rhyme or reason, or maybe not even on purpose. Most of them are not even on purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're perpetuating that, and that should stop. So spay and neuter your pets. and leave us alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
That's it. How can you argue with that? I don't know. I
No,
don't know how
you,
you can.
yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
And what you said was interesting about consumers kind of driving the market sometimes, and I think you're, I think being involved in the English Bulldog world, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But what I've also seen, like in the English Bulldog world, and I, I assume in the bully world, I mean, I don't know because I haven't, I've only looked from the outside in. But what I've seen is just some people the wrong people getting involved, and the people buying the pup think that okay, I can make $3,500 a pop because I just
Oh yeah.
and then they don't realize that they're perpetuating horrible genetics,
Yeah.
and you're not thinking outside the box and saying, well, maybe if I did with this breeding over here, I could bring out some better traits and some healthier. But no, I'm going to breed to color because I can get $3,500 a pop, because then I'll sell it to another person that thinks that they're going to get that new boat after their first litter. You know what I mean? So I just
Right.
the bully world, the bulldog world are very similar in a lot of ways, and they're just completely set in their ways. That's why I like the idea of concept breeds and crossing dogs and using outside blood to really bring the traits that you want from certain breeds, and also building a look that's healthy and vibrant at the same time.
Sure.
And like you, I want a dog that's impressive. I don't, I like cute little toy dogs. I have a Shih Tzu that I adore. I love her to death, and she's a great dog, and I can't believe how much I really like the breed the more I know about them. But I also like my English Bulldog because he's impressive, and he's got that presence about him. So if he was just a little bit more healthy and had maybe some outside blood, or it wasn't all about the bottom line, which I feel like the bulldog world is, unfortunately, these days.
Sure.
The fatter the better, because people like that at the same time, and they also like the fact that they could get $3,500 a pop, but they don't realize you're getting unhealthy dogs. You don't realize that the bitch is gonna have to have a C-section. They don't realize they're only gonna get 2 to 6 puppies max a litter. You know what I mean? So it's just
Sure.
yeah, it's just ignorance breeds ignorance in that world. So that's what really puts me off about some of the purebred enthusiasts, because it's just not the bully world. It's other breeds as well. But
Oh, for sure. And it seems to be it probably is more so connected to more extreme type breeds,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your Frenchies and your Bulldogs and maybe some of your Mastiff breeds, breeds that have a lot of wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
You get into your more, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I'll use the term generic just because it's a more normal looking canine.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, I don't know, a German Shorthair Pointer, a good hunting dog or whatever. Then things start to change a little bit, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a different crowd of people looking for a different type of dog. So there's some variance there for sure. But all these breeds out there's hundreds of them that have been around a long time, and they were all concept breeds at one time.
Yeah, absolutely.
They all were. So, and that's cool. And what's neat about so many of them is they've had staying power. They're still here. Some of them have gone extinct, but a lot of them are still here, and that is really neat. I love the idea. Like in my head, I'm going to die someday. What if there were still Mollosso Presa Mayos around
Mm-hmm.
in 100 years? How cool would that be? That's a cool thought to me. if people just kept moving forward with it, that would be really neat. Who knows what's going to happen, but that has happened already in other breeds and continues to happen. So the evolution of all that is really very, there's so much history there, right? There's such a story behind some of these breeds, and that's really, really neat. And it would be a shame if that went away, and then there's dogs in the pound, which are good little dogs and pets or whatever, and they have a story too, but it's much less interesting. It's definitely just ran across the street and went at it over here, and then that one ran across the street and went at it over here, and it's just kind of a messy story. But the history and the culture behind these purebred dogs it's romantic. It's art. It really is. It's an art form, and it's cool. So, I'm not doing this to ruin other breeds. I'm just doing it to make another one. And I'm a firm believer in, if you have a purebred dog that's a good example of its breed, then it should be used for that breed. It should be used to perpetuate the species, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I've always done that. Like I'm doing some things, I'm crossing some things, but those specimens that I've used are also being used to further their own kind. Yep. And I think that's important. I would never have a beautiful specimen of a specific breed and, for lack of better terms, waste it, to just do some experiments, so to speak. I think it's important to do both.
And, there's actually, in the AKC world, there are provisions. The AKC will allow all breed clubs to add, the outcross their blood to other breeds, but there's a particular, the process you have to go through to allow them to do it. And they really spell it out very specifically, but that provision is very seldomly used.
And that's the kind of like, I've always been a dog lover. I mean, like I said, I've had dogs all my life from a little kid to now. And I've always been the type of person that would always buy the books that had the breeds from A to Z, and the Dog Fancy magazine subscriptions as a kid. And so I've always been, in the peripheral. But I've really dug deep in the last couple of years since I started this podcast. What I've see is people shit on the AKC all the time, but I don't see the AKC always making these negative rules or regulations towards these breeds. It seems to be the breed clubs that are really driving the negative aspects of some of these breeds. And what I have seen is, and what I've noticed that, like this year's Westminster, a lot of these breeds had way fewer specimens than previous years. And to me, is that because they're not looking, their gene pool is too small? What is it? They're not.
My opinion, in a lot of breeds, because I've attended an all breed club conference. I've been an all breed club president. Mm-hmm. Not all breed. I'm sorry. I've been a breed club president, not all breed. Mm-hmm. But I've been to an all breed conference, and some of the breeders that are doing some of these breeds, there are very few of them, and they're very old.
Right.
So we're running out of, schnauzer, standard schnauzer breeders.
Yeah.
The people doing it is fewer. Right. So, that's kind of the case.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it is amazing how these breeds are still here. Like who breeds some of these dogs, right?
Yeah.
You see these breeds on the TV, and you're like, many of those even exist, and who's doing it?
Right.
You know, like there are a lot of people on this planet, but
yeah,
you know, to just be involved in something that's so obtuse, so to speak. You know, there's some breeds out there like you'll never see one. You know, you'll never see one your whole life unless you watch TV or you go to a dog show and there might happen to be one there.
Right.
But somehow they're still going, and then you have other breeds that just have such a huge following because they're never going to go nowhere because there's just too many people involved.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you think, Joe, maybe it has something to do with the politics of it all too? Like the sport of showing dogs and everything is diminishing a lot of it because of the adopt, don't shop culture.
Well, there's that, and then there's just some organizations with a lot of money and celebrity endorsements that don't believe we should own animals, eat animals, hunt animals, do anything with animals at all.
Yeah.
And in that aspect, we all dog lovers should really appreciate the AKC because they're a big, large, legitimate, well-respected organization that defends our ownership of dogs.
That's true. Never really thought of it that way, but it's definitely true.
No, they provide foundation stock services.
Yeah.
For it's just where are you at? Where is the breed at in its existence, in its process? But the AKC is not an issue. I mean, they're an asset to be used or participated with when we can or when you can. Absolutely.
Do you foresee you guys registering with the ABKC or something like that?
No, not right now. Okay, so this is all that's happening right now. I think I mentioned it before. We started an LLC. It's just Mollosso, Presa, Mayo LLC, MPM LLC. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be used to keep track of everything, and that's probably just going to be that way for quite some time.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But down the road, could I see it being accepted by a registry? Of course.
Yeah.
And that would be great. I would love it to be accepted by a legitimate registry like the ABKC. The AKC would be even a bigger honor, but they're just because it's so old and it's just well respected. But and the community of people in the AKC is really, really professional, right?
Yeah.
A lot of politics there. I get it,
but
it is a sport. It's a profession. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way it is at the ABKC. It's a much different culture, right?
Right.
So, but it would be cool. But it's just not even a thing right now. It's not even not even a worry at this point. I'm more excited about the next 5 to 10 years, maybe throwing our own dog show just for the people involved. Wouldn't that be neat to see 30 of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
And see, and that could happen. Realistically, that could happen within the next 10 years. I still wouldn't consider them a purebred dog, but it would be pretty cool to see, 20, 30 dogs that represent the goals well. That would be really neat, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you reached out to anybody else that started their own concept breed that's, say, like a Jamie Sweet or someone like that?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned her. We've had some short conversations, her and I. She's told me a few things about what she did, and her abilities and her situation is a lot. And plus, the breeds that she developed is so much different, right? Like they're much smaller. You can have a lot more of them, and move them, and build that a lot faster. Me, I'm dealing with giants and stuff. I can't have that many dogs. It takes a lot of dogs to build a breed. That's one thing she told me, right? It takes a lot. And so her big thing was you need help. You need an army, and that'll happen. It's slowly starting to happen right now. Like I said, we got some help in South America. And then anybody that buys one of these puppies as a breeding specimen hopefully they'll stick with it. And once that starts to happen, it's just a domino effect, right? Like, I'll probably have 5 or 6 puppies out of this litter that I want to move forward with. Well, once those dogs have offspring, that's a lot of dogs. Do the math.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of dogs. So things start moving quick once you get to that 3rd generation, right? And then whoever, our dear friend in South America, he has a lot more. He's got a better facility than I do, and more means than I do, and he's very good. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he understands the concept very well. We've had a lot of conversations about it. I could see him passing me up pretty quick, just as far as his advancement with it, just simply because of what he has the ability to do, and I'm all for it. Whatever gets this thing going, because I want the dog.
Mm-hmm.
I want the dog. So if he gets there before I do, you know who you are. You better give me one.
Right. Right.
You better hand it over, you dirty bastard.
Right.
Because it just wouldn't be right. It would just be terrible.
Right.
So, anyways, we sure are having fun, though. It's all smiles, and you know what? For the most part, so many messages, right? Mm-hmm. So many comments, so many opinions. For the most part, very positive. The negative ones are loud, for sure. They're very loud. But the big portion, the big reaction, I think there's a lot. There's just such a big group of people out there that are like, they're just rooting for it, and that's pretty cool. It's a neat thing, and what else am I gonna do? You know what I mean?
Right.
We'll just say several dog people that are well known around the world have said favorable things to us in private as well.
Definitely, and I should say this too, because I keep mentioning this particular person in South America, but there are other people within the States that I'll be sending dogs to that have helped me do this already. They've been there for me, and
been supportive.
They've been very supportive, and these are people that have been breeding dogs for a long time, a lot longer than I have. There's a lot of history there and a lot of knowledge there. And some of these people might want me to mention their names. I just don't know if that's true or not, so I'm not going to.
Probably a Neo or something like a Neo will be my foray into the first big Mastiff breed.
Well, you're talking to 2 Neo guys, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's my first. In fact, to me, in the current dog world, to me, my favorite breed of all is a Neapolitan Mastiff. Yeah. I think they're amazing. They're a work of art. I think they're one of the hardest dogs to breed and to get right. There's a lot of variables in a Neo. There's good wrinkle and there's bad wrinkle. There's too much, there's not enough. There's a certain way those wrinkles are supposed to collect. There's the dog's got to be big enough. It can't be too small. It's got to be long enough. There's a lot of, every breed has their specifics, but Neos are so extreme and so different. In order to get all those things right, it is hard. And when people do it right, when it's not too much, it's not too little, it's not overdone, it's not underdone, and it's real easy to go overboard with a Neo, right? And it's extremely easy to not have enough too. And so when someone does it right, it's impressive. It's because it doesn't happen very often. When a Neapolitan is done just right, it's really, really cool. And when that animal comes trotting into the ring, moving like a big old cat, and I swear the earth shakes. There's bigger dogs in the world, but not really proportionately. Like a 185-pound Neo, the bone on that thing, and the mass and the way it moves, it's just really something.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah,
They carry a presence about them that you feel without even seeing them.
yeah. I mean, whether you like them or not, when you see a good one, you'll never forget. That's what a Neo is to me. You know, you'll never forget. It doesn't matter if you're a poodle person or anything. It doesn't matter. When you see a Neo that's done the right way, that's just going to be in your head for the rest of your life. You know.
Yeah.
Giving you nightmares. That's true, and they just have it. You don't have to teach it.
No,
you know? They just have it, and they're very perceptive. You know, and what's nice about a good Neo to me is if you're the owner and you're bonded to your dog, you can turn them off too. Right. You know, like they might be like get the hell out of here, whoever you are. But if you give them the okay, they'll you know, they're manageable enough to be able to do something most of the time.
Right.
I've seen some that are pretty crazy, pretty over the top. Right. You know, but you always have a little. Every breed's like that. You have some that are more extreme than others.
The perception that a Neo can't be a guard dog is ridiculous. It is the direct opposite, and it does drive me crazy when people say, "Oh, it'll fang itself, this and that." A good Mastino, it'll do its job without being trained to do anything.
Right.
Well, most of them don't have to do anything; just sit there.
Yeah. Are you going to go across that dog? You going to come? You know, I don't think so.
Most of the time, it's just sit on the porch, and that's all it has to do. You know?
Yeah.
That's it. But it'll do more if it needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, guys. It was good talking.
It was an honor, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon enough. I'll send you pictures as soon as I can.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.